Elen Silla Lumen Omen Tielvo. Today I will be giving my ideas of what if Huor was cursed by Morgoth instead of Hurin. I'll first be talking about how this changes Tuor's story before talking about Turin and Nienor. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think much changes with the fall of Gondolin, seeing as how the doom of the Noldor was still in effect. So the curse of Morgoth may have simply resulted in Gondolin's fall earlier. As for afterwards, one of two things could have happened. Either Morgoth releases Huor like he did Hurin and lifted the curse after Gondolin's fall, or the very fate of Arda and destiny laid out by Ilúvatar would have broken Morgoth's curse on Hurin and Tuor, thus leaving Eärendil unaffected by the curse. Either way, the end would still be the same with the overthrow of Morgoth. As for Turin's story, that is where this what if gets interesting. How much of Turin's life was because of the curse, and how much of it was his own bad decision making? Turin's early years in Doriath probably don't change much. Morgoth wouldn't come, and Turin would eventually become a great warrior. What would change is Saeros. I do not believe Saeros would attack Turin, as Mablon implies Saeros is unintentionally and unwittingly doing Morgoth's work, possibly due to the curse. But with the curse not in play, Saeros would not attack Turin. Thus, Turin would stay in Doriath, and he and Beleg and the other marsh wardens would continue to fight the orcs of Morgoth. However, one day Turin would be separated from Beleg, cut off by the orcs, and he would be forced to flee. Turin would wander into the wild, ways away from Doriath, as the orcs would continue to hunt him. Beleg would in all likelihood begin searching for Turin, attempting to find him before the orcs could. Just like in the actual story, Turin would meet Gwyndor in the wild, and the two would enter into Nargothrond. There he would stay for a time, but messengers would be sent to Thingol, letting him know Turin, his foster son, was safe. Because of the dangers in Middle-earth, Turin would remain in Nargothrond, and Beleg would come there. It would be because of Beleg that Turin's most rash counsel would be ignored, such as the building of the bridge over Narog. But open war would still occur, with the armies of Nargothrond clearing away the forces of Morgoth for a time. And thus, still not knowing the location of Nargothrond, Morgoth would probably send his spies and scouts out to follow the elven companies, but they would be found out and destroyed by the elves. Just like the original timeline, Morgoth and Nienor would journey to Doriath for safety. Thingol would receive them, and he would send word to Turin that Morwen and Nienor were safe in Doriath. Turin would probably feel conflicted, wanting to see his family, but wanting to stay fighting Morgoth. I do believe Orodreth would give Turin and Beleg leave to go to Doriath, and Orodreth, as a gift to Turin, would give him the Nauglamir. And so I believe Turin would reunite with his mother and sister in Doriath for the first time in years. Turin and Beleg would return to war on the marshlands with the wardens, and Turin would give Thingol the Nauglamir. Eventually, over at Nargothrond, Morgoth would at last discover Nargothrond's location and destroy it, much like he did in the original timeline. Just like the original timeline, Thingol would set the Silmaril in the Nauglamir, and he would be killed by the dwarves. Thus war would be kindled, and the dwarves of Nogrod attacked Menegroth, and Turin would lead an attack himself, driving into the dwarven ranks, killing many of the dwarves. But the elves could not sustain their attack and would fall back to Morgoth. Turin would not pull back, however, and he would be surrounded. Beleg would rush out to save his friend, and the two would fight through the dwarves, but Beleg would be mortally wounded. The dwarves would break into Morgoth, but here they would be repelled, facing heavy losses. During the chaos, Turin, enraged by Beleg's death, would charge into the fray yet again, and he would fight and kill the dwarven king. I believe that Dior would become king of Doriath, as he would be originally. But Doriath would be weakened, and Morgoth would send Glaurung to finally destroy Doriath. The coming of Glaurung would be great, and behind him came a great army. Dior would muster the Sindar, with Turin at his side, and battle the army of Glaurung. This battle would be a disaster, with Dior and Mablung slain, the forest aflame, and Turin would be alone. He would face Glaurung and would be unable to slay the dragon, as his sword would break upon the dragon's hide, and Glaurung would whip his tail, hitting Turin, throwing him to the ground. Glaurung would walk over Turin, and as he lays dying, he forces the shards of his sword into Glaurung's belly, slaying the dragon. Turin would then soon die afterwards, and Morwen and Nienor would bury him. And Doriath was destroyed, and the survivors would bury the dead and head to the fords of Sirion. From there, the timeline would probably be the same as it was in the Silmarillion. That's what I think would happen if Huor was cursed instead of Hurin. Thanks to Tales of the Eldar for the video suggestion, and thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, feel free to like and subscribe for more content, and please let me know how I can better improve these videos. Thanks, and as the elves say, Namarie.